You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Alicia Pfeifer.
Hello.
Alicia, please enlighten all these wonderful people out here about who am I speaking with.
I am in Las Vegas. I am a podcaster and a blogger. I'm living the fancy life, I guess, out here in Vegas.
Now, is a blogger and kind of podcaster what you do professionally?
It is, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what types of things do you focus on in this blog?
So it's kind of the female experience. The main thing that we're looking to do is cut out the bullshit, remove the sugarcoating from what we usually talk about as women. It's not totally just for women, but it's three women, so we kind of have that point of view. But for us, it's about kind of breaking down what we talk about as a society and being a little bit more raw.
What types of things do you think that should be broken down or be a little bit more open to?
So one of the last topics that we've really covered was mental health. I think it's a huge stigma in our society today, and has always actually been for women, especially. In history, that's where the word hysteria comes from, is women who had mental health issues and were treated as if they were plagued, basically. So I think it was important for us to really, strip that down and tackle that topic honestly.
Did you have any fascination with this through psychology in a way?
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, definitely. That's part of it. My sister and our friend, we all write for the blog, and they actually, both of them are psychology majors. I just dabble. I'm just interested, but they are both psychology majors.
I went to school for psychology, and we had to do mental health and like types of disorders of that sort programs on a daily basis. You had to fill out papers on that. And let me tell you something, it doesn't matter what gender you are, what age you are, mental health affects everyone.
Absolutely.
Statistically happening now, kids of younger ages are experiencing more anxiety, more acts of depression. A child coming up to you at the age of 8 saying, I have severe depression, any adult or someone that doesn't understand how drastic it is now hitting younger communities is going to laugh at that remark.
Yeah.
I have seen it hit young kids at a very, very high level. And it's not something to be joked about. It's not something to be made fun of, because mental health is a serious thing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people say, oh, it's inside of your head. That's the problem. It's inside of your head.
Mm-hmm.
When, it's different when you're like, if you're experiencing like, oh, my arm's broken. Okay. That heals.
Sure.
The weird part about with depression, that doesn't heal right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any type of medication, any type of thing seems like it's like a bandage. That problem is still there. And it takes a lot of people to pull themselves out of slumps of this sort.
Definitely. And that's where my point of view comes from. I actually struggle with bipolar and borderline personality disorder. So I wanted to come from a place of real honesty and really showcasing what it's like to live on a daily basis as someone with a mental health disorder, because I think that that's not a conversation we're having as a society. And I think that's important. And I completely agree with you about kids are coming up and struggling earlier and earlier. We live in a world right now where things are scary. So and it's in everyone's face, so it's kind of hitting kids earlier, and that is just it's a scary a scary thought that that's how that's going down.
Well, we live in a world of judgment, sadly.
Mhm.
Everything's judgment upon other people. Society, it feels like everyone's got a voice and opinion to make changes in someone else's life, but we never want to take the time to look at the ones in our own.
Mhm.
Um, for me, I mean, I have anxiety, I guess, but it's not like, it's more like if I go up in front of a stage of people, am I going to shit myself right now? Because I don't like being the center stage of attention, even though I like
Sure.
being the class clown. But, I had kind of pressure through school. I had a panic attack once. That's not fun. Um,
Mhm.
I remember being so scared in school, not knowing if a bully or something was going to happen. And, man,
Yeah.
there's so much stuff that goes on whether you're a kid. Um, it's difficult to kind of wrap your head around the concept of mental health because the way we stigmatized it now is it's becoming so popular where everything is considered a mental health disorder. I remember some person said ADHD, mental health disorder. I don't consider it a mental health disorder. I have ADHD. I actually consider it a benefit and a curse. I
Mhm.
understand the perspective coming from it might be a mental disorder on the concept of I don't get any sleep ever. Um, but I've used it to my benefit. I've used it like I've been podcasting since 1 o'clock in the morning, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. Um, it's I don't get sleep, but I get things done. I get
Yeah.
things. I have my day. Like I'll go grocery shopping at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'll do whatever I need to do. Yeah, it's nice to sleep sometimes, and I'll get randomly tired, and take a nap or something. But I have energy 15 minutes later. I've been used it to kind of get as much as I possibly can and create this career and this life for myself the fastest I can. And, people sleep 9, 10 hours, or some people even sleep all day, whether you're dealing with depression or whatever. And
Mhm.
for me, that wasn't an option. So I use it to my benefit. Instead of sitting there trying to get sleep when I know it's not going to happen, I use it in my efforts. I use it to
Mhm.
talk. I use it to get things done, work around the house, get things, my one neighbor has it too because he's out mowing his lawn at 4 o'clock in the morning. Now that's a serious mental health problem when you're doing that. But it's all about not being lazy for me, and I always found, like, I'd be recharged after an hour sleep, I'm a bit
Mhm.
of an insomniac, and my buddy tries to talk to me about that. He's like, "That's not healthy, I don't know how you can function." I'm like, "Because when you deal with something where you're just getting random bouts of energy back and forth, it's really, really hard to stay focused on one thing and also be just leveled as a person because I feel like a
Mhm.
lot of times, even when I'm having a conversation with you, my mind's already picker pattering off into what the hell. Why does a ladybug have dots on its back? I don't know. Why am I thinking about that? My brain just goes off on random tangents.
Sure. Yeah, no, I completely can relate to that. Having bipolar disorder, it's all about swings in mood, and when when I'm on an upswing, I capitalize on that and try to get as much done, and really focus while that's happening. That way, when I'm on a downswing, I can relax and take the time I need and know that I got shit done, when I could, and not beating myself up for needing to take some time, to work through that downswing.
What types of things have you found, at least looking through the eyes of someone with bipolar, um, trying to understand, like, people don't get it? Because people don't get that. You say
Mm,
bipolar and people just think, what, you're happy one minute, you're sad the next. It's like, no, it's like, it's something completely different. I want to get your take on that.
sure. um, I I try not to get too nitpicky about it because it is something that people say kind of in jest, like, oh, you're you have your period, you're acting like you're bipolar, like whatever, like that kind of shit is just, it's ridiculous. But I think the thing that is important, to note is, just like any other disorder that is not physical, it doesn't mean that it's any less real. Just because you can't see it or witness it happening in the moment, doesn't mean that it isn't a huge part of who I am or what my day looks like. It isn't a matter of being happy one minute and sad the next. It is a matter of being excitable and having a ton of energy for like a few days at a time, and then not being able to get out of bed for one day or whatever. It isn't what the media makes it out to be, I think, is the big thing.
You know what's crazy is one person that a lot of people don't know has a serious mental health disorder, and that's Princess Leia from Star Wars.
Hmm.
She suffered from severe depression and ended actually ending her life. But
Yeah.
like, I was watching, taking psychology classes, these 45-minute videos of people with severe mental health disorders right in the morning at 5 a.m. Good Lord, problems of being an insomniac. Um, and I would be, after I would watch it, like I watched a kid 13 years old has schizophrenia and tried to set his house on fire with his family inside.
Oh my
And he did it because he thought King Tut was outside of his house. Yes, I mean King Tut, the mummy. And I'm watching like, holy shit, this kid is just messed up. But as I'm hearing it and seeing the documentary through his side, I'm like, oh my God. And like, I ended up afterwards, like, not even going to class, just crawling into bed, and my family like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "I can't talk to anybody today." Because like,
God.
when you get put in the perspective of somebody else and you start seeing it from their eyes and their experience and their family's experience, it's it's a energy that completely wipes you out and exhausts you.
Definitely. Yeah. And I, I would call it being an empath. So when you are so tuned in to how someone else is feeling, it actually affects your own mood. That
Yeah, my mom's a big belief that I'm an empath because she'll be like, you know why you go to the grocery store at 2 in the morning, right, Robbie? And I'm like, why? And she goes, because you get energy from people. You can read people
Mhm.
pretty freaking well. And when someone's negative and you warn me about them, you're 100% right most of the time. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I understand. And I started getting it as I got older. I'm like, why the fuck can I sense that my neighbor through my fucking house is
Mhm.
experiencing some trauma right now in their life, like is
Yeah.
experiencing something bad that is keeping me up right now. I
Mhm.
don't know if you ever seen the show Ghost Whisperer.
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, my mom met the guy who does that show, and he's all in belief of psychic abilities. And I podcasted with people that have psychic abilities himself. I do a little bit believe in them on the concept of I have some shit I can do that I can't explain when it comes to like my grandma apparently can see ghosts and see these things and help them and all these types. That I haven't experienced, but I have had a dream about somebody, and then me explaining it to my mom, and then my mom showed me a picture of the guy and be like, "Is this the guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And she goes, "Can you tell me where you found him?" And my mom's been known to locate people that way too.
Mm.
So there's been some stuff I have not completely. I'm not 100% belief in it, but there's been some shit I can't explain. I do chalk it up to the example of being on a frequency, like you're on a radio frequency. Everybody's tuned into something different,
Right.
and well, when it comes to this empath thing, it's like I get drained by people so much
Yep.
throughout the day. And she talked to this guy who wrote this show Ghost Whisperer, and he actually wrote books on these psychic abilities known as empaths and all these type of Reiki, whatever energy healings. I don't truly understand, but
Mm.
he said my name before my mom could even ask about me. Like my mom was getting ready to ask the question, "Hey, I have a son. His name," and he goes, "Is his name Robbie?" And
Wow.
she goes, "Yeah, how'd you know?" And he goes, "He's going to be a very powerful psychic one day." And my mom has had this belief since I was like 4 years old that I'm going to be like this fucking here, whatever, this amazing person. And she's like, you don't understand the things you're going through. Can you just read some of these books? And I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. This is it's not true. If anybody's going to be able to have a psychic ability, it should be what the hell the Powerball numbers are going to be, so I can win some damn money. She goes, "It's going to take time, but you're going to come open to it. Okay, it's gonna come at you." And as I've been podcasting with more people and just hearing conversations with people, I'm starting to notice this is what makes me pretty good at doing this podcast, is because I'm able to talk to people and vibe with people. based on interests and based on just regular conversation. It's about connecting to one another again. I believe everybody's an empath, but I think when it comes down to it, empaths are seen as mainly females, based on the concept of sensitivity, because it's a more feminine characteristic to be sensitive to things around you. Guys kind of have to build up this fake persona of the alpha male, and it's about creating wholeness and becoming one with people. It's about being sensitive to not only your environment, but being sensitive to others. You don't want to say something that's going to upset somebody. You don't want to say something that can be taken out of disregard, but you don't want to be completely censored either. You just want to make sure that that we're all people living on this world together. We're all experiencing a life, and we all have our debts to pay. We all have these things we have to live with. Bruce Lee said it best. God gave you this road because you're tough enough to walk it. This is the life you have. You have to make it your own.
Definitely. And I think that is what we're trying to do as well with our podcast. Again, it's about the human experience. We happen to be women, but I think that there is a whole world of fluctuating masculinity that's happening right now, and I think that's super important because we lived for so long with these ideals of what women should be like and what men should be like, and I think you're right. It's typically a female trait to be sensitive, and I don't think that should be. I think these things are starting to change, and I think that we'll end up being better for it, because at the end of the day, it's all about connecting with one another and learning from each other and being open to the people around you.
What gets me interested about feminism and things of this sort is, I don't think they're doing it right, but I understand that how they're doing it. It's the same thing that happens when you hear race riots and all these types of things. The problem is we're built on a really, really fucking shady foundation. America is one constitute of lies, sadly. That's like that in any really culture. It's built on some blood. It's built on some uncruel foundings, I guess. And women didn't get rights until not too long ago.
Right.
And it was like now you're seeing all of them trying to make up for lost time when it comes to feminist movements, where they do riots and they do these types of things. And people go, they're just trying to create an outcry. They're trying to create an outbreak. I'm like, they're doing that because they felt like they wasted time for so many years. They were being pushed around. How many times can you push around the kid on the schoolyard before he decides to throw a fist back? It's like that with other races. It's like that with all these things. The sad thing is, we had this concept, this idea that, males were dominant. The women stayed home and made, sandwiches and took care of the household, that was based on a dumb, stupid scientific study that came out with a bunch of monkeys. They had 50 female chimps, 50 male chimps. Okay. 50 male chimps they placed two objects in front of these chimps. One was a truck, one was a doll. Okay. It was the nature nurture aspect. The guy monkeys all gravitated towards the truck. Very, very few of them gravitated towards the teddy bear. But all the female chimps gravitated towards the teddy bear. They all started nurturing it immediately and treating it like a baby. And we use that study to understand, that's obviously the men are the workhorse and the women are the caregivers. They're the protector of the household. The guy brings home the money. That's not true. It's the same concept of, there aren't male jobs, there aren't female jobs. There's stuff that's stereotyped that way, but a man can be president, a woman can be president. But the sad factor is nobody can really be president because it's a shitty ass job. It's not something, you can't put the faith of anything, no matter the gender, no matter the race, into one person to run a whole bunch of other people. That's ridiculous. And the concept of, I have friends that have families, and they're the guy that sits at home and cleans while their girlfriend or wife goes out and does the job for them. Like, brings home the money. That's what that person's inspiration is. I have a buddy whose dream is just to be a father. That's
Right.
his job. That's what he wants to be.
Yep. Yeah. And that is a matter of toxic masculinity, is this, like, these old school preconceived notions of what a man should be. I have plenty of friends who are stay at home dads, or own their own small businesses, or things that are typically or related to females. It's so ridiculous that that's the way that people had been thinking for so long. And I don't know why it's been so hard to break people of that. I feel like if I were a man, I'd want those walls to be broken down. And as a woman, the things that I'm being told I should and shouldn't do, I want to break down those walls. I don't want to live like that. And I don't want other people to have to feel like they have to live like that too.
I podcasted with some people. I've met some people that have been transgender, and I've
Mhm.
talked to them on the podcast, and they relate it to being literally there shouldn't, nobody knows what it's like to look in the mirror and not truly feel comfortable in the skin that they were born into. And I tell them, like, hey, I have body dysmorphia. I know exactly what that's like. I see an image in the mirror that I don't like.
Mhm.
And they tell me, they're like, it's not really a choice that we're born this way. And, I think everything's done in the proper way, but sadly, the proper way is probably the slowest way to get things done.
Mhm.
It's easier to start riots and get your attention out that way than it is to truly just strike or just truly just keep telling people and trying to change each mind.
Mhm.
Martin Luther King, him doing his movements, no violence, just voice, just talking, just conversations. Then there was Malcolm X,
Mhm.
riots, Black Panther Party, all these types of things. I'm like, there's a way to do things, but sadly, the proper way is not the fastest. And people want
Mhm.
it to change now. They don't want to look at what's going to happen in 10 years. And I'm like, we're all not going to stick to our beliefs 10 years from now. That our
Mhm.
beliefs now are going to change 10 years from now. Our beliefs 10 years later are going to change 10 years after that. It's going to
Mhm.
keep, the world's going to keep progressing. I just hope it progresses into a faster era. I think we need to stop worrying about who's more dominant. Let me tell
Mhm.
you something. That's the thing with guys too. Okay, half the
Yep.
time I'm in a room with another dude, I'm judging. Can I choke this guy out? If we were on me and my one buddy were just podcasting, I was like, how long do you think, like, if me and you were stranded on an island, who's going to kill who? He goes, what do you
Mhm.
mean? I'm like, dude, you thought of it. He goes, yeah, I'd probably wait till you were sleeping or something. I'm like, yeah, we're best friends. And we're talking about bashing each other's heads in with coconuts and rocks, trying to get the upper hand on somebody. And I'm like, that's a masculine thing. That's a thing.
Mhm.
But women do that too.
Oh yeah.
Women are some of the nastiest fighters I've ever seen. They're worse than guys.
Mhm.
They pull hair. They do all types of shit. I can't stand that. You know, that's crazy because I've seen some women fights, and let me tell you
Mhm.
something. That's some of the most weirdest, craziest ones I've ever seen. And I brought up the thing with the transgender because there was a UFC fighter that did not disclose that he was transgender. He was originally a man, had kids and everything, then decided to become a woman. He
Mhm.
joined the UFC in the women's champions in the league of the. His name is Fox, or no, I forgot what his name is. I'm not gonna say Jamie Fox because that's the guy from Django. Uh, it's I forgot what his first name was, but something Fox. He joined and started beating the living shit out of these women,
Ah.
and then disclosed later after he was winning. They're like, "Why the hell is he winning?" And they checked and found out he was transgender, and he got all his titles taken away from him. He goes, I didn't feel like it was information I needed to disclose. No, you need to disclose that because your genetic makeup is completely different than that woman. Your body is usually bigger if you're a man. Your bones are a little bit different from a woman's bones. You're giving yourself an unfair advantage. It's like taking steroids and then joining the Olympics. You're going to have an upper hand.
Yeah, it looks like Fallon Fox is her name.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those things that is, um, that it's a new era as far as this stuff is concerned. Like, we transgender people have always been in society for as far back as we have history. Transgender people have existed, but there are these new issues as far as like UFC is a new thing, and how do we handle having a transgendered woman fighting other women? Is there, like you said, an unfair advantage? Yeah, probably. How do we handle that? Do we say that she can't fight at all? Do we
No,
say?
it's very, very simple. We have
Mhm,
bodybuilding competitions, okay? In
mhm,
bodybuilding competitions, they have two statuses. They have natural and unnatural. Unnatural are the ones that use hormone replacement and types of supplements and types of steroids to get to the body that they have, okay? It's not natural.
mhm,
They needed to do that because at the time, bodybuilding competitions, most of the winners that were beating the natural guys that used to eat eggs and work out extremely hard were losing to people that had bodies that could not be enhanced without drugs. So we separated, made two different leagues. It's simple. Make a
mm,
transgender league. That's all you need.
mm,
If a woman chooses to be a guy and and play football, that's okay apparently because oh, well that's just a woman playing football in a guy's body. No. You need to make a separate category for that. It's not limiting them, it's not cutting them out of sports, but it's a fix for the whole difference in body structures and genetic makeup of the person. You know, it helps. It at least makes at least a short answer to a solution to something. I mean, having a guy throw literally these women around this ring and beat the living crap out of them is not right because they're already at an unfair advantage. And don't get me wrong, there are some women out there, Cyborg, for instance. Woo! She could fuck up that guy easy in a matter of a minute. If it was me and Ronda Rousey getting in a ring, I'm getting my ass whooped. But
sure.
I like that's always what has been kind of interesting about me. I've found I like it when a girl can stand up for herself. I like it when like if I'm driving in a car, like I've dated a girl that knew MMA and knew boxing, and
Mhm.
she told me she was like, you know what, don't get pissed off while you're driving because if you get road rage and some dudes decide to step out of the car, I don't want to have to get out of the car and beat the shit out of this guy. And I'm like,
Right.
I love that. Okay. And I love that I could test her and I always know she could throw me through a fucking coffee table if I wanted to. And it's like that. There's a comedian, Brad Williams. He's a dwarf. But he talks about it. Some guy making fun of him at a bar and some girl was like talking to him. He's like, "Oh, this is your wife," and the guy was buying drinks. Next thing you know, the dude that was buying drinks got spilt beer on the woman and pushed her and was like, "Why don't you watch where you're going?" And she goes, "What?" And he knew his wife had like Muay Thai experience, all these types of stuff, like won black belts and shit, and Jeet Kune Do and all this stuff. And he's sitting there like, "Oh, you're about to get fucked up." And she goes, "My man's going to kick your ass." And the guy looked over and saw him. And he's like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 what? What? That's not true." And before the guy could even think or make a remark at this dude that was a dwarf in front of him, she straight up front kicked him in the face and knocked his ass out.
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
it shows you it doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl, or if you want to be big, you want to be bad, you want to whatever, you want to be, it doesn't matter. If people are people, we choose to like. There's women out there that could easily kick the biggest guy in the world's ass, only on the
Mhm.
concept of they have experience in something that dude has no experience in. You can be the biggest pound of meat, pound of flesh, whatever. It doesn't mean anything when it comes to getting the upper hand.
Right. Yeah, and I think that it's important that no one lays hands on anyone, and if anyone lays hands on anyone, that person has the right to defend themselves. It doesn't matter what your gender is. That's my personal belief. I've always felt that way. There's
So
no.
do you
Mhm.
think that it's okay for a woman to hit a guy, but a guy can't hit a woman?
No, I don't believe that at all. If I hit a man, he has every right to hit me back.
Well, that's very open because a lot of people are like, I've met girls that actually will hit me. And I'm sitting there like, what are you doing? And you put your hands on me, you're gone. I'm like, I'm not trying to, but I'm not going to let you hit me in the face. I'm trying to push you away from me and keep you like
Right.
distance myself from you, like keep my arms out so you're not touching me. Are you putting your hands on me? No, I'm not putting my hands on you. I just don't want to be hit in the face.
Right. Yeah. No, that's some like serious bullshit that women some women are want to do, and I don't think that that's right at all. There's no reason to assume that a man shouldn't or can't hit you back. It's unfortunate because for a very long time, women, and I have experienced this as well, have felt like their bubbles are not
Impenetrable.
well, yeah, and they're not respected. There have been so many times in my life, and I think it is part of the normal female experience for a man to enter my space without my permission, and touch me in a way that is unwanted, and that becomes, it puts a guard up, and then suddenly it becomes this thing of like, any man that looks at you the wrong way, it becomes, is this person going to victimize me or abuse me in some way? And it's shitty because then, when it comes down to actual personal relationships, you've got this chip on your shoulder already, just from being a woman out in the world. And that sucks. It
It
sucks
definitely
bad.
freaks me out a little bit. Like for me, I cuss just openly. I never do it out of a sense of aggression. I actually consider it's a bit of a stress relief, dropping a nice like shit.
Yeah.
I don't know where the freaking remote is. And then like I'll say it and then someone will be like my mom or something will be like, "Whoa, are you angry?" No, I'm not angry. I'm just talking, okay? I'm just
Yeah.
expressing. But there's always that kind of fear, that tension, like you're bigger than me and there's something, if something got physical it would get crazy. But I know some girls that are like experienced, as in like I could easily fuck that guy up, and I'm
Yeah.
like, but you don't need to test that should never need to be tested, that should never need to even be a stigma. We created this stigma of bringing that tension in there, and sometimes you meet girls like in a it falls parties on both sides, guy and girl.
Mhm.
They test each other's boundaries, okay?
Yep.
Mostly when a woman gets up into a guy's face and goes, "You can't touch me, you can't," and the guy's just like, "What's going on?" And there's this test that we always throw around. There was actually a case of it. Johnny Depp
Hmm.
didn't have a prenup with his wife, and his wife called the cops saying that he hit her, and that's not what happened. They got into an argument, and she was kind of looking for a little bit of money. They found out after they got a divorce and they settled. He lost a lot of his stuff, and it had to pay her so much. But the cops came and they took him away,
Hmm.
and or no, they didn't take him away. And the main thing that gets highlighted is when it's a domestic disturbance, a guy immediately gets taken away, mostly because it's the fear aspect. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, sometimes the woman's the more dangerous one. I've seen cases on cops where, there's a guy sitting there crying and bleeding, and he's like sitting there, the guy like, just one stop, and like the girl's getting taken away in the cop car and everything. And it's like, the problem is when a cop comes onto a scene, most of the time it's a male cop. He
Hmm.
sees a guy and a girl, and the girl starts crying. He hit me. He hit this. Immediately, at any point, even if the guy has a black eye, has bruises, has whatever, it doesn't matter. The guy's getting taken away because they fall to the sensitive side of the female. You're the victim. You're the victim. And then they find out that's not true.
Yeah, it's completely fucked because men can be abuse survivors just as easily as women, and men are not taken as seriously as women. There was a YouTuber who was in a abusive situation, and of course, when he went public, everyone and their mother wanted to call him a pussy, and like that's not cool. Like this is real life, and that is a real person who is hurting. And for other men and some women to say, well, you should have stuck up for yourself, you should have handled it, whatever. That we wouldn't say that to a female abuse survivor. Why would we say that to a man? That's not cool.
This is when I talk and bring up the things is it doesn't matter if it's your gender, it doesn't matter if it's your race. It's all about understanding both sides of the argument. You know, you
Mm,
need to look at that extra perspective. If you're just taking things off how it looks, how it seems, or you're getting one-sided information, you're uneducated. You need
mhm,
to keep an open mind that there could be a possibility that it could be a fault on that side, even though it doesn't look like it with all the facts. But
mhm,
if you get a complete understanding, like they always chalk up like serial killer. They always examine it being a guy. I'm like, no, there's women serial killers out there too. There's
yep,
male jobs, there's female jobs, but they're all jobs. It just depends on who gets the job. That's all it
mhm,
is. And I like you see feminists that have these outbreak movements, and these guys are like, they're just ridiculous, being insane. That's what they have to do to get their point across, because nobody's listening. Nobody's taking the consideration for that. They always bring up the fact that women get paid less, or women do this or women do that. I'm like, okay, well, let me tell you something. There are feminists out there that yell at other women too, saying,
yep.
well, you're selfish for not having kids. No, sometimes a woman doesn't need kids. Sometimes they don't need to. They don't need to do that.
Yeah, my first blog post is about being a female who's older and not having children, and the amount of shit that I get about being nearly 40 and not wanting kids is insane. That I made a decision for me, and I'm married, so for me and my husband made this decision together that we don't want children. um it it's crazy how much it's expected that that's what we should be doing, and it's no one's fucking business
Yeah.
what I do and whether or not I want to have children.
They look at the statistic that most women in their elderly ages who choose of not to have kids and choose a career is they end up wanting kids later in life when it's a little bit too late. See, the problem is they prioritize that you only have a small window of opportunity. By the time 35 hits, that doesn't really it's not a good chance that you're going to end up having kids just based on biological function. But I'm
Mhm,
like, if you talk about Sarah Silverman, she didn't want kids. She's a famous comedian, decided to put all her time and effort into a career, not creating a relationship.
mhm.
She's very successful. She's good at what she does. But everyone's like, she's hurt. I'm like, no, she did come out saying she wished she kind of did have kids, now kind of being older. She kind of realized that was something she never dived into. But that's the same thing. When you could have zigged, you could have zagged. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
If she would
sure.
have had kids at a younger age, she would have been upset that her career was never successful. Her career never was this or was that. I'm like, you're given options in life. You're getting roads to walk. You have to choose which one's more of a priority.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly right. There's definitely a part of me that's like, I wonder what it would be like. But it's never the end either. So if in 10 years I decide I want to adopt or foster or go through some sort of surrogacy, if these are options that are afforded to me, that's something that I can handle at that time. But I'm making the best decisions I can for the present, and the present me doesn't want to do that. I like having free time. I like uh, not being 9 months of agony and sickness. And I prefer that for me right now. Um, it it's all about personal feelings, and for people to get so up in arms about that, it just makes no sense to me. And I hear it constantly. I've got plenty of friends who don't want kids, and their parents or their families are always making a big deal about it. I'm lucky; my parents are very cool about it. Like, they made it known at one point that they would have liked to be grandparents, but it isn't a big deal, and they'd rather I do what's right for me, because otherwise I'm bringing a child into this world that I'm not giving 100% to, and that's okay.
And people choose to make that mistake only on the notion that it's the right thing to do is to have a child. Sometimes there are people out there that are not fit to be parents.
Hmm.
It's better to raise a child giving 100% than not giving any effort at all.
Yeah.
Um, I always have to use this kind of reference, like the only opinion you can ever really follow is your own. You have to make your own decisions in this life. You can't just live your whole life by what someone tells you, because you end up living not the life you're meant to live.
Yeah, definitely. And that's another big stigma too, because in my 20s, I actually had an abortion. And that's a huge red flag, hot topic in this
For any
country.
community, doesn't matter if you're feministic or anything, guys and
Yeah.
all this stuff, you get a bunch of hate from everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. All around. And I make no qualms about the decision I made. It was not a good decision for me to have a child at that point. It would have been very detrimental to my life, and that child's life would not have been the best that I could have provided. And that was a huge decision. And, of course, there's always part of me that's like, what if I had that baby? But like, at the end of the day, I made the best decision I could, a legal decision, a legal decision. It is no one's business on whether or not I should have done it, because I could do it and I did it. And that was the right decision for me at that time.
And that's only shows people, like, you have to make your choices and know that they're your own. You can't just structure yourself off somebody else's. If someone would have told you to get an abortion, I guarantee you 100% you probably wouldn't have done it.
Mm-hmm.
We live a life that seems to be structured for us based on what other people want to think, or based on how we should consider what other people think. If it's not bothering anybody, if it's not hurting anybody,
Mm-hmm.
then it's okay. And that's what you feel is right to do. You should do that. You shouldn't, you shouldn't go and hurt others around you just so you can get your whatever you want across. No,
Right.
it should be about, if it betters your life and it affects your life and you're fine with that, then do it. But if it hurts somebody else, don't do it. That's all. It's simple as that. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what gender, what race you are. It doesn't matter anything of that sort.
Yeah, for sure. And that is, I made a decision that didn't hurt anyone. And I did it. I went to a place where there were protesters. I was actually like afraid for my own well-being, because people get crazy when it comes to these issues. And that, to me, is where you're doing the wrong thing by belittling or harassing a woman who's doing something that's perfectly legal and perfectly within her rights.
There's a proper way to get points across, and there's proper ways to get things done, but sadly the proper way is the slowest way of progress.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, kind of wrapping it up here, but you know I appreciate you being on my podcast, and first of all being able to relate to you, because kind of first of all seeing your blog a little bit, I was like, whoa, we got a feminist here. And it's like, seems like anytime mentioning that, and immediately every guy's like, I'm not diving into that, that's a trap. Immediately I'm like, no, it's not, man. They're just people just like us, dude. They have a point across, let's understand them. So, like, nobody ever takes the time to understand them. That's why they're always so outlandish with so many things. And that's pointed not only towards feminism, that's pointed to anybody that's just suppressed. you
Mm-hmm.
know you're making up for lost time. You're trying to get stuff done. You're a person just like me. We were just able to have a logical conversation, a good conversation, without any argument, any of
Yeah.
that. It's so simple. If we just take a fucking hour to do so, you get a better understanding of another person's perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't even consider myself a feminist, just because of the stigma that's involved with that. I don't want to be associated with that. I'm a woman who is empowered, and I have a voice and I have a platform, and I'm going to utilize those things to start breaking down the walls between the people around me. That's what's important to me.
And Alicia, it's not only that you're a woman, it's you're a person.
Mhm.
you have a voice. A lot of people feel like their voice, if it truly matters, they can just go complain about it on Facebook or Twitter. No, we all have something interesting to share, but we always focus on the problems in our life, not what we want to truly become or what we truly want to do.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely. And so I'm utilizing that voice, and that that's what is that's why this is what I do professionally, because I think it's important, and I want to make sure that people who don't feel like they can speak up, I'll do it for them. I'm more than happy to do it for them.
And I really appreciate you out there doing this type of thing, because in a voiceless world where it seems like our voice just gets transported through social media, it takes a lot for someone to truly be able to connect and be able to kind of be the voice for a lot of people that truly are voiceless.
Definitely. Absolutely. I agree.
Thank you so much, Alicia, for being on the podcast.
Not a problem. It's been a pleasure.